And we're going to start with ethics of hunting. And Gary, you had something to say.
Yeah, you know, I've been an outfitter for close to 15 years now and guided 20 years before that. Hunted since I was probably 8 years old. There are some issues with hunting right now that that I feel we need to address and be real cautious about. I was totally shocked to find out last summer there was a proposal in the legislature going forward to allow silencers while we're hunting. You know, I've heard the pros to it. Makes a hunter not quite as gun shy when he pulls the trigger, but I hate to go down that path. I think that's something we can overcome with. Mitch was.
What's the ethical objection that you have to a silencer?
I think it opens the door to some people that might do something that they wouldn't illegal that they wouldn't do without it. You know, one of the ways
poaching, is that what you're...
Exactly. Law enforcement, Wyoming Game and Fish law enforcement, obviously rifle shots are brought to their attention. A landowner, you know, rifle shots brought to his attention. I just feel it's not something that's necessary to bring into today's hunting.
Are there any practices in hunting that you think should not be allowed?
Well, you know, as an outfitter, I probably see some people that take shots that they probably shouldn't take, distance-wise. You know, there's schools you can go to now, and rifles. You know, obviously the art of stalking game is not at the forefront like it used to be. There's weapons now that very easily can take a deer or elk at 1,000 yards. That, in my mind, granted, there are people that are capable of doing that.
So is the development of these high-powered weapons sort of outstripping the abilities, training, capabilities of a lot of hunters? I
think it is. I think the ability of a hunter is diminished when he can shoot at 1,000 yards as opposed to 200 to 300 yards.
Well, I mean, I've read that Wyoming is one of the least restrictive states in terms of burdens or conditions put on hunters. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have probably the most liberal, if you will, laws in the country. It's not against the law in Wyoming to have a loaded vehicle, loaded weapon in a vehicle, those types of things. And as far as a safety record, we have an outstanding safety record in the state as far as accidental discharges and individuals getting injured in the field. Certainly, we still have our accidents, unfortunately, but we don't have a lot of laws that govern that safety aspect of it. Certainly we have some laws that govern the ethical aspects of it, but most of our laws are directed more at the conservation aspect.
Can you give me an example of legislation that has been passed here to guide the ethics of hunters?
And I would say probably the first and foremost one that comes to my mind is shooting from a public road or highway. Certainly that is a safety issue as well for oncoming traffic, but it's also an ethical issue, mandating that hunters have to go out into the field to pursue game rather than be able to take it off of a roadway or a highway. And certainly there are some of our neighboring states that allow for that, and I find that as an ethical issue as well as a safety issue.
Shauna, ethics as an issue, do you think that that there might be a difference between men and women hunters in any sense in that area? I mean, women are often newer to hunting.
You know, I think that's hard to say. I think, you know, laws only go so far. It's really up to us as hunters educating other hunters to put those ethics first and foremost. I think you have to honor the sport, bottom line.
Of course, obviously the department offers various training courses for hunters. Where do ethics fit into that?
Certainly, it's a huge part of the hunter safety curriculum that the department and the commission is in charge of implementing. I think it's interesting, and I believe it was Theodore Roosevelt once said that hunting, unlike any other sport, has no referee and it has no audience. And as such, it is to the individual ethic of the person in the field to do the right thing, to do the legal thing, unlike any other sport. And you think about that, and every other sport that we participate in or watch has a referee and it has an audience that sets forth those ethical guidelines, but hunting does not. Those are all internal. Certainly society mandates what those are through laws and regulations to a certain degree, but what controls the individual in the field is their own culture, their own tradition, their own ethical beliefs and what is right and wrong at the time.
So within the Society of Hunters, would you say that when somebody transgresses, crosses the line, does something that is unethical, do other hunters do something to try to correct that?
I think to a certain extent, and I mean that sort of goes back to the heritage. My dad taught me how to hunt in an ethical way. I've taught my daughters, one daughter that hunts, to hunt in an ethical way. So, yeah, I agree.
Going back to that question, and having worked in wildlife law enforcement for many, many years, I think that the answer to that is largely situational. And I think it depends on the degree of the violation.
Well, does the department get reports from?
Oh, absolutely. On our Stop Poaching hotline, which is a very effective way to apprehend and prosecute wildlife violators, certainly the more egregious the violation, the more willing people are to step forward and say, for example, I saw this person poach a mule deer on the winter range, or whether if it's a small, or I shouldn't say small, if it's a safety violation, like an individual not wearing hunter orange, people are very much less likely to call that in versus witnessing the taking of 11 elk in a single incident or something like that. People are very willing to step up on those more egregious violations and become involved.
Well, now, Shauna, you work directly, of course, with a conservation organization. How does hunting and conservation fit together?
Hand in hand, in my mind. I think as a sport, hunters have one of the biggest responsibilities of any sport out there. If you're talking about maintaining your sport, you're also talking about maintaining really big picture ideas. You're talking about maintaining habitat, you're talking about maintaining space, clean water, clean air, things like that. Because if you want your sport to continue, you have to take care of it.
So still following that Teddy Roosevelt example.
Absolutely, yeah. And it comes upon our shoulders to lead that charge, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Certainly, if you look back to the history of the United States, clear back to the 17th century, sportsmen have funded conservation in North America. And not only do they provide a tool to manage wildlife, but they have funded not only game management, but non-game management as well. So that whole conservation ethic and harvesting animals in an ethical manner and utilizing that product for food and one of the tenets of the North American model of wildlife management is that wildlife not be killed or taken unnecessarily, and we have a wildlife management protocol set up in North America where wildlife is utilized.
Now, there's certain animals out there, of course: coyote, jackrabbit, porcupine, raccoon, red fox, skunk, and gopher. You can shoot them all. There's no license required. Is that hunting?
Certainly it can be hunting, and the requirement of a license, I don't think, dictates whether you're hunting or not hunting. The Wyoming legislature in the 30s set up those statutes to allow primarily the taking of coyotes. They can cause significant damage to agricultural products, sheep, cattle, and those type of things. So the legislature chose not to require seasons nor licenses for the take of those animals. And certainly coyote hunting is a very valid and thriving sport, not only in Wyoming, but a lot of states.
Do you get a lot of call for that, Gary?
No, that's not, no.
The big game.
You know, there are outfitters that do some prairie dog hunts on a regular basis, but nothing that we do in the western part of the state.
So these are all classified as varmints. I just wanted to use the word varmints in this show. So, what do you think is the biggest challenge facing hunting? You know, as we all move forward, you know, we've seen a slight resurgence in the last 5 years or so, but a decline leading to that. What do you think needs to be done by those who love the sport?
I think we need to keep it relevant. I think we need to stay in the conversation, stay engaged. I think that, like I said, hunters have a tremendous responsibility right now. There's a lot of things that they are a part of, or that they understand, that they need to continue to engage in. Maintaining, you know, getting kids into hunting, getting people my age into hunting, because once people understand it and they make that connection with it, then they kind of start to see that bigger picture. And I think it's that bigger picture really is what is important, most important in the future.
As you know, Scott, some love it and some are against it. What do you think?
Absolutely, and I think Shauna's comments are very well taken. It needs to stay relevant, and it needs to be properly funded. And we need to provide access to hunters and fishermen so that they can participate in those activities. And we need to realize that hunting is part of wildlife conservation, and we need to legitimize that. We need to carry on those traditions and cultures and ensure that folks are exposed to that.
Well, you know, Gary, you're sort of at the high end of things, because when you take people out, it's usually for a large animal, like a major game.
Correct.
What do you think is most important to look at?
Well, making sure there is the funding to take care of all aspects of it, whether it be paying the game warden his salary to enforce game laws, getting the money to do habitat improvement projects that are huge right now. That if there's a stumbling block in the future for our big game animals, it's habitat. That we're losing it.
Hey, we got lots of it. Well, this is the least populated state.
That's true, but also you've got areas on the mule deer winter range that have up to 80% of the sagebrush is classified as decadent. That is their food source. It's outgrown its usefulness. It hasn't been burned. There hasn't been, you know, there's been a huge campaign to put out a fire immediately. Well, years ago that wasn't the case. So these winter ranges got burned on a regular basis. New growth came in, which increased the habitat for those big game animals.
So unexpected consequence of intervention.
Correct.
Well, I'm sure this won't be the last time we talk about this, but thank you all. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.